and going. I'm very excited to kick off another edition of AI Insiders from AI Marketers Guild with a couple of special guests from terrific firm Hot Cognition. We'll have Tiffany Vasilchik and Estelle Shepherd with us today. Really excited for this. It, Tiffany and I were supposed to be working side by side on a very big project last year that unfortunately fell through. But as one of these consolation prizes and a pretty big one, it at least got us in touch, and I was excited to hear their take on where AI fits in. And just as a reminder, in case anyone needs it, these are participatory, these are community conversations and not webinars. So it'll be great to see Tiffany and Estelle what you have to present, but we welcome a lot of that interaction and feedback and questions and all that good stuff. Yeah, I'll turn over the floor to you.
Awesome. Thank you. And good to see Aileen, who introduced us. A lot of familiar faces. I'm still Tiffany, and I'm the co-founder of Hot Cognition with Estelle. And what we want to talk to you about is how AI is changing marketing and sales. And I think those two things are pretty intertwined, but how you can really use AI to put what you're doing almost on steroids to make a splash, to get people to notice you, your products, and drive more engagement. Um, I'll just start with a quick introduction and pass it over to Estelle. But I started out in marketing, so I worked at Pepsi and then Mondelez, and then went over to the consulting side and spent years in brand and innovation trend consulting. The last place I worked was Board of Innovation, and that's where I met Estelle. And the CEO there was passionate early on about AI and using AI in the marketing and sales and innovation process. And we kind of caught the bug and said, how do we use this to fix the sales process? And along the way, started working more in marketing as well. And want to share kind of some of the key insights that we had with you today. I'm gonna turn it over to Estelle. Sorry, my screen, I can't quite see.
Thanks. To put your glasses on.
Oh, good point.
Um, we tag team. Hi, I'm Estelle. Thanks, Tiffany. So big hello from London, which is not as chilly as the East Coast, but much darker, which is why it looks like I'm sitting here in the middle of the night. So my background is I started off really more in sales. So in the tech sector, I worked in kind of talent acquisition in during the first internet wave, working for businesses like March First and Microsoft, and then migrated into marketing services and spent a fair chunk of my career in marketing, branding, marketing services, and then innovation. And it was at Board of Innovation that I met Tiffany, and she said we had this kind of baptism of fire around generative AI. It became front and center, part of our everyday. And so my take on this is really the performance enhancing capabilities of AI, how generative AI can make individuals almost better than their best self. And I'm just really committed wherever possible to demystifying, to educating, to creating the impetus to make sure that we stay in control of generative AI and that the tables don't flip where it begins to control us.
Exactly. And by the way, please connect with us. So these are QR codes to LinkedIn profiles. I would love to connect with all of you. I'll show it again at the end in case you missed it. So just diving in a bit, and Estelle and I are going to tag team this, but I'm sure you've heard this a lot, but we're firm believers. Like AI is not going to take your job in the near future, at least, right? But someone who knows how to use it might. I don't know, politics aside, I don't know if everybody saw yesterday's announcement about Stargate, that as a country, we're going to be devoting $500 billion into AI, Oracle, OpenAI, SoftBank teaming up to help kind of manage that. But clearly the momentum is just growing and growing, and you're seeing more and more. And even from where we are, where we started a year ago. Like the progress has been huge and significant. And as leaders and marketers, getting on the bandwagon and leading that charge is never been more important. We always like to use the parable of the frog in the water, that they put in cold water on the stove and it heats up and all of a sudden the frog's unaware and jumps out because he's getting scalded. And, AI is a little bit like that. There's a lot of people who are lounging around in that water. And our message is don't be a frog. And this is an AI generated frog, in case you were wondering. So he was done by Hawk, who's our AI guy. And I applaud all of you, because if you're in the AI Marketers Guild and if you're listening to this, clearly you're ahead of the curve and more interested and engaged in these things. And it's important to stay on top of it, because we all know the game has changed. If you look at what Jensen, the founder of NVIDIA, said, we've smashed Moore's Law. The idea that, computing power was doubling every 2 years has gone to 6 months, and perhaps even faster than that. A BCG study at the bottom has said that AI, generative AI, is driving 10 to 20% productivity, 30 to 50% efficiency, and more importantly, almost important, or as important, is quality. So we're seeing 40% higher quality when people are using generative AI to do high knowledge work, like consulting, like marketing, those kinds of functions. So I think you're all convinced, and the case is there. But what I'm saying is these statistics are even improving as we speak, right? And the AIQ is what we call the measure of any organization in terms of its competence to drive competitive advantage using AI, or even just stay on an even keel, right? So how do you continually drive that AIQ? And that's something we work a lot with our clients on. How do you get everyone comfortable using AI and using it to do a lot of stuff that can just put them ahead of the crowd and take away, in many cases, just that tyranny of the blank page, which is really tough. So Hot Cognition, we're an AI-driven sales and marketing conversion engine. So how do we help you sell more, do more business using behavioral science? Because so much of this, and Estelle can talk about this so much, but so much of it is human, like human behavior. You can have all the AI in the world, but if you're not motivated to use it and you don't want to use it, it's not helping you. But we use behavioral science. We use deep domain expertise. So we bring AI, sales, human capability expertise, and merge that with your expertise to create an engine for you that really helps meet you where you are and drive better results. What we want to share is 5 shifts that we're seeing in the modern marketing and sales landscape that are really, really important today, have everything to do with AI in terms of how you can leverage this and how you can kind of speed ahead and take advantage of these shifts. So I'm going to kind of bookend and do the first and last, and I'll turn it over to Estelle for the middle ones. But the first shift that we're seeing, and it's a shift, we should always be doing this, but we're seeing people do it more, and it's really critical because of how people are buying, is to get inside the head of the buyer. Because consumers and because customers and clients can find out so much about you online, and it's easier today than ever before, they're almost through their journey by the time they contact you. So by the time they buy their product, they've pretty much figured out everything about who you are and what they need to know, right? And many of them are saying, how do I have a personalized journey? Like, give me more relevant information at every stage of the buying process, because I know so much and you can know so much about me. So our question is, how do you continue to raise the bar on knowing your customers even better? And how do you get inside their heads and understand kind of where they're at? We use a traditional empathy map. So think, see, do, hear. How do you know what they're thinking? How do you understand what's inspiring them visually? Right? How do you understand how they're acting? How do you understand what they're hearing about you, whether it's on social media and other places? And how does that contribute to their gains, pains and gains? When we actually think about using this information, a lot of what we do to act on that is create an AI digital twin of our consumers. So we can do this on an individual level, or we can do it on a consumer segment level. But creating that empathy map by using what you know about your potential customers and clients is really, really effective. So what we do if we're working with a consumer products company, what we would do on a segment level is upload all the relevant data that we can find on who that company is and who their customer is, right? And if you're an individual consultancy, what we say is upload everything you can find about your potential client into a generative AI model like a chat GPT and ask that model to act as if it's the client. So it creates kind of a digital twin. And in that way, it actually takes all the knowledge that you've loaded into it, as well as all the knowledge that's in the model to act as that customer and to help you understand better things on that empathy map. So things, if we're working with a consumer product, for example, you might have segmentation data, you might have demographic or firm data, you might have behavioral data, right, or buying signals. We take all of that and create this digital twin. And with that digital twin, then we're able to talk to it, right? And we say, okay, digital twin, pretend you're someone who's in Philadelphia or in Chicago or in a different city, and talk to me about attitudes and opinions, likes and dislikes, unmet needs, wants, desires. We're doing a project right now on hard cider, for example. And we asked the digital twin to act as if it's a hard cider consumer, like a synthetic consumer. And we asked it a ton of questions, got back the responses. We created some concepts and then asked for its reaction. And you can do that with a consulting client or a hard cider client. But asking AI to help you better understand your customer, you can upload the empathy map, right? And ask it to act, tell you what the consumer is thinking, doing, hearing, and saying. So for the buyer mindset, knowing that your buyer isn't always actively buying, working out sort of where they're at, what they want, and getting ahead of the curve. You can do this by using generative AI. You can do it by uploading what you know about your customer or client and asking it to create a synthetic persona that you can actually vet your ideas with and use to understand more about them. Does that make sense to everybody? Questions? Yeah? Estelle, over to you.
I was just typing a response to David. Yes, absolutely. The projects feature in ChatGPT is a really good place to kind of start to get your head around this. You can build your own mini digital twins, thereby uploading the right kind of artifacts and information. Yeah, we're using them a lot. Won't be a surprise.
Yeah.
Okay, so the second mindset shift, really, again, another one, this isn't going to come as a massive surprise, but is really a nod to the battle for our attention. And this is relevant whether we're the consumer in question or whether we're the seller in question. There is a huge, huge battle for attention, and it makes it increasingly important to make it. Oh, Tiffany, can you move me along? Oh no, I can do it. Sorry. Makes it increasingly important to kind of create the right type of impression. And there are lots of different theories on how you do this. One of the ones I was listening to yesterday was this idea that in order to stand out, you have to be scary, sexy, or strange. Which I thought was interesting and probably not entirely incorrect, but also like hugely, hugely risky. So we would argue that maybe a safer way to think about that is to focus on being familiar, and that familiarity is something that you can build through repetition, and also to offer value. And this is that the offer of value is something that's increased massively with the onset of social media and social media influences. That kind of where we start to really engage with content is when there's some value in it and when that value is free. Oh, sorry, now I've lost my, there we go. Thanks, Tiffany. One of the places we like to start is LinkedIn. LinkedIn is love it, hate it. It is the game board on which we are all playing this giant game of Monopoly. It still is the world's biggest Rolodex. It is where people go. I also think it's the acceptable face of doom scrolling if you're in a meeting, and you think somebody might catch you if you're looking at TikTok or Instagram, then LinkedIn is a fairly safe space to go. We encourage everybody that we work with, everybody that we interact with, to really just stop and think about what their LinkedIn profile is saying about them, and to really make sure that what you have to offer and who you're offering to is very, very clear. And that wherever you are in your career stage, wherever you are in your organization, wherever you are in a buying cycle, that you really start to work the people and the algorithm in LinkedIn in order for it to work in your favor. We'll come back to conversations a little bit in a second, but LinkedIn is genuinely a really good way in a business to business context to start a conversation, to create a point of view, to set out your stall, and to engage with people that you want to be working with, want to be working for, or want to be working alongside. We will offer you one of our very earliest custom GPTs, which is, if you scan this QR code now, it will take you to ChatGPT, to our LinkedIn profile optimizer that was built by Hawk, our AI guy, with some input from Tiffany and I, which will really help you section by section go through your LinkedIn profile and make sure it's genuinely optimized.
Yeah. Can I just add one thing there? And it also helps you sort of articulate what you do through the lens of the buyer. So as we talked about buyer mindset, it actually helps you reframe maybe what you do from a bio to a buyer mindset.
Thank you. So in seconds, know this, there is widespread battle raging for our attention, and that isn't going anywhere. You can become familiar through repetition, that is connecting yourself with a brand, with a customer problem, and your ability to solve that, and to say that ad nauseum. And LinkedIn is a great place to do that. Wherever you can, create value for a potential client and make sure that that's free. Always assume you've got 2 to 3 seconds to engage. Tops, make it very clear where you appear, what you do, and how you can help. Any questions? That all makes sense? I'm not seeing any real head shaking, so I'm going to move on. I'm going to move on.
Optimizer, I can't wait to try it.
Great.
I just pinned it right now. So
excellent. Well, we can share it after the call as well. Moving on to my current favorite, which is the idea of shameless self-promotion, which really is starting to think about the ways that you create that familiarity and the way that you put yourselves in front of potential buyers and create those links. I like to think of it as networking without canapes, which is a shame because I happen to love canapes, and for at least 7-8 years of my life, I practically lived on them. I do miss them. And that's just if anybody's thinking of organizing an in real life networking event with wine and canapes, I'll be there. But networking without the canapes, networking online, digitally, is really about committing to yourself not to be invisible. And I think this kind of tracks at certainly at a corporate level, but also at an individual level, is this sense that if you're not in ways that make you feel comfortable and not icky, if you're not putting yourself out there and in front of the people who might have the need and the budget for your services, then someone else will. And this is not a time, this is not a context in which to be shy and retiring and hide what you can do behind a modesty rock. So commit to not being invisible, build trust through repetition. And it's remarkably easy to do on LinkedIn, and it's remarkably easy to do when you let AI do some of the heavy lift. We've found certain hacks, certain ways of kind of building conversation flows with AI, really leaning into helping your whichever tool you choose, whether it's ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, whichever one you choose, but spending the time to really educate your AI partner in your tone of voice, in the phrases that you enjoy, in the content that you enjoy consuming, so that you can build content calendars that feel authentic, that feel informative, and will allow you to start to build that repetitive muscle and make sure that you're posting on a regular basis. There are 65 million decision makers on LinkedIn, and only 3% of them actively post, and less than 1% post on a regular weekly basis. And the reason I say that is it's easy to be intimidated by huge platforms and to feel that there's a lot of content already out there. But actually, even though the numbers we're talking about are relatively big, when you think about it in percentage terms, it's like there is room for you, there's room for your point of view and room to create that value. Hacking the discipline is really about building the internal processes for yourself to take what is your motivation, maybe at 10 o'clock on Monday morning, to be active on social media, to be building content calendars, but actually being able to see that through. And it's another place that AI can really, really come into play. I am a non-smoker as of day 74. I just like a polite ripple of applause, because this is someone who had a cigarette and a cup of coffee for a breakfast every day for about 30 years. And ChatGPT helped me quit smoking. I sat with ChatGPT. I asked it to build me a quit smoking program from 3 or 4 weeks out, right the way through to 8 weeks post. Having written the plan, I got down with the plan. I checked the plan every day. Whatever the plan told me to do on that day, I did it. And that's just to say, it's another one of those places where once you make friends with your AI partner, whichever one you choose, you'd be amazed at how effective it can be in helping you to build the process and the structure that work for you, that allow you to really build the discipline. So to go beyond the motivation you feel, as I said, at 10 o'clock on a Monday morning, or after you come off a webinar like this one, and to actually create those processes and structures so that you can stick to them.
I just got to say, that is remarkable. Like, I was so impressed where this weekend ChatGPT using the camera helped me change a doorknob, something I've never done and was kind of scared to.
Yeah.
But I think quitting smoking is a somewhat bigger deal.
I don't know, like DIY, not smoking. But I mean, I'll take it. Thank you, David.
Yeah, yeah. So just
DIY's less.
had to pause on that, because that's a hell of an accomplishment with or without AI. So it's great to hear that. Also, it's just it is really good to hear even anecdotes like this of AI as a force for good, because we see that, like you brought up, this whole like 500 billion, 500 trillion. What's our number today for star whatever?
Yeah.
And bring up all this stuff, and it's like, is this actually going to be a net good, net bad? But just like hearing things like that, honestly, like I want to hear stuff like that all day long, like what you share, because it's a great reminder.
And just so you know, the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer said exactly the same thing here 2 weeks ago. Right? He said AI is going to be our future. It's going to put the UK back on the map. The slightly annoying thing is we don't have all the major players. Like, we haven't got the Nvidia guy, we haven't got the Starlink guy, we haven't got $500 trillion. Like, you know, we'll probably have to do it with a couple of sticks and 2 reams of A4 paper. But AI is our future, and it's a really good point, David. This technology isn't going away, but I am a firm believer in our ability as human beings to control this, and I am a firm believer in our ability and our power to shape it in a way that is positive. I've had only positive interactions with generative AI. It's been an incredible force for good for me professionally, personally. I'm enjoying immensely kind of passing that on to friends, to family, to my son. And actually, it genuinely is the performance enhancement that has opened some new doors for me at a point where I wasn't sure that would happen again. So, yes, definitely a big believer. Just four pointers on content strategy. Just get me back on track. Just a focus on being useful but not preachy, and that can be a hard line to balance when you're writing content and you're writing content on your own in a vacuum. So it's another way that your AI editor can help you, and just like, is this useful? Do I sound preachy? What are the bits I'm missing? Make this more human. Sprinkle in your personality and imbue it. AI is only going to get you, at best, 80% of the way through anything. It still requires, our world requires, our readership requires a level of human discernment and personality that you need to commit to. Consistency over perfection is undoubtedly the rule, and Tiffany and I have proven this time and time again in the last 12 months. So don't sweat it, don't overthink it, just commit to it and get something out there, however small, whatever your rhythm is. Make it start off with once every 2 weeks, build up to once a week, build up then to twice a week. Whatever your habit is, just make it consistent. And always invite debate. And my plea is invite debate, not argument. There are enough haters, there are enough trolls. We don't need any more. If someone doesn't like your content, let them stop following it. If you don't like their content, stop following. Debate is good, argument not so good. This is an example of an AI crafted content calendar. Again, just a nod, I think, to an informed audience of how much one piece of content, one idea that you maybe had when you were walking the dog or cooking the dinner, how many times you can reformat that in different ways, and how that creates a joined up story for your audience. Again, it's relevant at an individual level as well as a brand level, that there are numerous different ways that we absorb information. And so having a big idea, but then thinking about what that would look like long form, how that might create an infographic, how you might turn it into a short video or a carousel post, all really useful, and all allowing that repetition and that ability to build trust. So shameless self-promotion, the rules are you have to talk about yourself, you have to do it out loud, and you have to do it on the internet repeatedly. It is just part of the rules of the game, unless you are crazy famous. And yeah, but I think you do have to talk about yourself and what you do. You do have to do it repeatedly, and you really should post it on the internet. Make a commitment to post consistently and own a point of view, whatever that point of view is. It doesn't have to be contentious. It can be quite gentle, but kind of work out what your point of view is, and it will just give you a solid anchor. And my advice is just get out there and publish. Like, this is one of those, the sooner you do it, the more you do it, the easier it gets. And you will see the benefits of it very quickly. I feel like I've been talking for a really long time. But I'll talk a bit more.
I'm happy to interrupt for 1 second here, because I'm curious what you've seen, like whether it's the LinkedIn bot or other things, and like one issue I often have with AI is not being bored, right? And so how to keep things original, and how to do things that, like, you know, if you just have this like helping businesses succeed in your LinkedIn headline, or just like posts that sound like everything else, like how you avoid getting stuck in that trap when leaning much more heavily on AI, because you need to stand at, like, if it, now I think there's so much content that I think is actually created by humans that just sounds like AI wrote it, and so it might as well have.
I think it's a really interesting point, and I think we are, in the same way that we smashed Moore's law, I think we are hurtling to a point where who wrote it will be irrelevant. Like, who wrote it, who designed it, who built it, it won't be part of our kind of decision process and whether or not we absorb the information. I think there is a tension around content between whether or not you're writing content because you genuinely want to help your followership, whether you genuinely want to build a community versus whether you're trying to sell something. And I would argue, and this will be always an interesting one for Tiffany and I come at this very much from I'm going to stay in building a community, building a followership, helping people. And I am 100% confident the kind of work that I want to do and the people that I want to do it with will find me. I'm really not convinced anymore that you have to kind of pound away with, I do this for these types of companies. I think in the vast majority of cases, if you're in a B2B context as a consultant or as an agency, that your buyer is intelligent enough to pass what it is you do, and your potential buyer is also arrogant enough to assume that if they've got a need and a budget, that you will do what is necessary to deliver on that. And I'll pass it over to
Tiffany. Yeah, I think you can also know so much about your buyer that you can be so much more specific and relevant than ever before, and that's huge. And we always say, give more, get more. And the more you can tell people about things, the more you'll get back. And I think that rings true everywhere. I think specifically on the writing part, we use a lot of different tools for writing and posting, and using a lot of different tools and just pushing them to help more in a way you'd push a summer intern or an employee is part of the trick, because it is experimental. Anybody else have thoughts on that one?
No? I have one comment about AI writing. So one of the things on LinkedIn that is critical, as you know, is to respond to the comments. So when you write something, people will comment, and you have to be present with the comments. So if AI is doing your writing and you're not present, what do you do with the comments?
It's a really, really good point, Karen. And there is also research, haven't had it validated by LinkedIn, and the algorithm remains a very black box. But there is a line of thinking that if you are active on the platform for 15 minutes before you post and 15 minutes after you post, that your post will get more exposure. We use, and this is something else we can share with you, but we use another AI-driven automation tool for our posting. So I will pick 2 times a week that I'll schedule my post to go out. And that schedule time also appears in my personal calendar. And at 10 before 10 is the time that I go into LinkedIn, check my messages. At 10 a.m., my post will appear. And then for the next 10 minutes, I'll spend that time looking and checking for comments, either that have appeared that day or that maybe appeared the next day. So yeah, I agree. The commenting, the responding, it's a nice segue into mindset shift for this idea that you should always be thinking about how you open a conversation, and that those comments around a post are the way you can start to get into a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I just saw in the chat as well this kind of AI tending to be verbose. Tiffany and I both have different ways of managing our AI copywriters, but probably the most frequent follow-up I do when AI writes something for me is, that's really long and it's a bit boring. Make it snappier, make it a bit sardonic. Let's have some sarcasm, make it sound like me. Yeah, never take the first draft ever.
Yeah, I tell AI that people don't read and they don't like long form comment. Be pithy and use bullets.
Yeah,
totally.
But you can also you can get AI to mimic a style, right? So you can find a style of writing or someone that posts in a way that you really enjoy, and ask it to look at that and apply that same kind of style. Like, I always want to, wherever I can, I want there to be some humor in what I write. Like, I want someone to kind of smile, and smile definitely, but maybe even actually laugh out loud at stuff that I'm sharing. So I will point my AI twin at kind of comedy writing quite a lot.
Well,
Um,
I've got a real-time example of this, by the way, using your own tool that you shared, because
right.
I was curious to at least do the start of a test of the LinkedIn profile optimizer, and my profile headline starts not that David Berkowitz, which many, if
Mhm.
not most of you will appreciate. And so starting to analyze it, and I said, I said to the chat, I said, do you get why I said not that David Berkowitz? And it said, yes, I understand the humor and the context behind not that David Berkowitz. You're distinguishing yourself from the infamous individual with the same name while adding a touch of personality to your profile. It's a memorable way to break the ice. If you'd like to keep that tone, we can integrate it into a headline that highlights your professional expertise. And so it like it was a wonderful thing where I was like, oh man, it is, and this also goes back to my point of like not wanting to be boring, right? Like I'd rather be like I'd rather be not as good at it than be boring.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Yep,
it got it,
totally.
right? Like it's
Yeah.
and so whatever I gotta give credit to whoever's programming the custom GPT here. It's like because I don't think that would as easily come through in just a regular ChatGPT conversation based on the thousands, I think, of other chats I've had with it. So.
Yay.
Excellent. Excellent feedback. We train it on best practices, and so I'm glad it picked up the tone and all of that, and I hope everybody else gives it a try.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah.
you've got your endorsement here. So
Excellent.
Excellent.
Um, I'm just gonna pick up the pace. I think probably we can skip through this. The point of this section really is we never know. We really never know where a conversation is going to go. And for those of us that have had quite long careers, the people who turn up at various points during your career in different guises because they're in different roles, because they work for different companies, because you're in a different place, has been a lesson I learned quite early on as a headhunter, as someone who was paid to network. But it's something that stayed with me. And so this idea that any conversation you can start in a business context is worthwhile. It's at the very least, it's going to give you a new perspective on what you're doing. It's going to give you a deeper understanding of how your product or service plays out in a specific audience. But also kind of challenges you to really drive the insightful questions and to really start to understand what challenges different people, different organizations, and different products are facing at any given time. Where you can offer value, always do. Networking strategically it's something that Tiffany and I kind of probably first bonded over is our sort of long-term commitment to building networks and to using those networks wherever we can to help people out. And there's just one example I'd like to share here because it hasn't left me yet, and it was quite early on in our Hot Cognition journey, and we were working with a particular client, relatively senior individual who was connecting at pace through some of our methods and platforms with senior marketing individuals, and kind of really quite enjoying it. And he was connecting on LinkedIn, and we were looking one day at kind of his connections and working out what the next stages were. And he came across this guy who'd messaged him to say he was between roles, and this guy went, "Oh, never mind him," and literally just moved on. And I want to suggest professionally, but I also want to request personally, that you never do that. That you never do that. One of the most important things we can do to keep this whole process human is to recognize when somebody might actually genuinely, on a personal level, need some help. And without wanting to, there shouldn't need to be a payoff. But actually what I've realized is when you spend a little bit of time with someone who really needs some help because they're between jobs or because they're maybe really struggling with a particular project or a particular product or a particular campaign, those are the people that really remember you the next time they've got a need and they've got some budget to spend. So the advice is always be opening conversations. There's always value in them, and we just never know which ones of those might turn into the next big opportunity. And a personal request to be generous. There are none of us that are so busy we can't find 15-20 minutes to just help someone out, help someone solve a problem. Next, I definitely can't move these slides along. I thought it was me, but it really isn't. I think I've just said all of that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
back to Tiffany.
Yeah, so just to close, you've opened a ton of conversations, but it used to be like there were two competitors in a game, whether you were talking about Coke and Pepsi or one consulting company versus another. And now, and it used to be sort of cut or dried who was going to win or lose. And now we say you win by inches. It's the littlest things that put people over the edge. There's so much parity in the competition. And it's those littlest things, I like to say we win by centimeters or millimeters. And one of the ways we use AI a lot is to help identify what are those ways you can win by inches? What are those little things that you can do that'll put you over the edge? And the beauty of, and this is when I worked for a woman named Faith Popcorn, we used to call it brailing the culture. That you look for signs and indicators in every category, and you look for little nuggets of truth and insight that are going to help you. And the beauty of AI is it can braille the culture and figure out where your client or customer is showing up in those little bits of insight that are going to help you kind of move the needle and show that you know them, that you're in that buyer mindset better than anyone else. And we use AI a lot for that, and ask it to help us on proposals. We'll feed in a proposal and say, what are the littlest things that we can do to actually demonstrate that we understand this client, whether it's in how we, set up the Zoom call, or whether it's, the assets that we use, whether it's video or other things. What are the little the signals that we can give the client? We just used some prompts. We're helping a cannabis dispensary open up in Fall River. And one of the things that they're designing is a loyalty program. So we said, load in all the other loyalty programs in ours and help us figure out the littlest ways that we can make this better and signal to the user that this is a better offering than the others. And that's something I encourage you to do. Think about some think about some customer groups, and ask ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity to actually help you with those little details. And it's pretty amazing the specifics that you get back and how it helps you kind of go that extra mile as a human, and show them that you care and that you understand it. And I think that's the key for us. AI is always in service of the human and developing those human relationships, and hopefully, to what you were saying, David, be a force for good. The one thing I had to tell you is, I took comfort with that Stargate investment, that one of the things Sam Altman talked about was, curing disease and AI really helping with things like that and moving ahead. So I think we're very optimistic toward the promise, but I think there are big and little ways you can use AI. And we just wanted to end on the little ways that really help move the needle. And to Estelle's point on quitting smoking, using it for your own personal kind of plans and helping yourself win by inches. We always say you have to trust the process. It's like doing Peloton or doing any of these things. You put in the effort every day, and you don't see the result for a while. You might not see it for 6 months. But what are the micro goals? How does it help you keep up your energy? How does it help you drive everyday habit? And that's so critical. And AI can really help you formulate those plans and keep you on track and help you win personally by inches. And that's one way we really suggest you use AI to help you create those kinds of plans. So that's what we had for you today. These are 5 shifts that we're seeing in the zeitgeist and that you can use and deploy AI against to help you get better results. So hopefully it spurred some ideas for you.
This is great, and I gotta say, this is also something where I can see from the chat I'm not alone in trying to get a head start in using this, and I think this is I think this is a form of flattery by multitasking, where everyone is just so eager to apply this right now, and I'm seeing Barry sharing instructions for creating a digital twin that he's putting into the chat, and just folks who are just so eager to not just like listen and nod along here, but actually apply it now, right? Like we're not waiting until 1 o'clock Eastern or whatever your time zone is. We're doing this, yeah.
Excellent. And by the way, like Estelle said, we can share, we use that posting tool, High Performer, to be seen. We can share, they're going to give us a QR code. They didn't get it to us earlier, but if you want to try it out, it's a tool we like, and it might be worth a go.
I have a quick in the weeds question about this. Was great. Thank you very much. Really, really appreciate this. In terms of creating a digital twin, and this is for Tiffany and Estelle or anybody, I've been playing around with both projects and custom GPTs, and they're sort of better for some things and not great for others. Which of those do you think is best for working with a digital twin?
I'd go custom GPT. If you've started to learn the basics of how to build a custom GPT, I would totally go that way. But I think projects are super useful for quick stuff. But where you can go with it, the level of detail and fidelity you can build around a custom GPT definitely be my preference.
And
don't you think?
I would add that Hawk, our AI guy, so he's the AI expert on our team. He builds them in custom GPTs, and also, it's not one and done is the one thing I'd want to emphasize with you. Like, as you have conversations, and we all tape conversations now, and as you get more consumer data, whatever, level you're working at, adding that to the training data is really, really important. The other thing that is important is testing the fidelity. So if you're using it for a consumer products application, talking to real humans and then talking to your synthetic persona and testing the output of both is something you want to do just to make sure, because sometimes, it goes a little off track.
I have found that the custom GPTs hallucinate. And even when you upload very specific data and ask it to reference that data, they will sometimes more often than sometimes, give you back wrong data.
Yeah, Hawk
that doesn't correspond.
Hawk has a prompt where he says when it starts to do that, he'll ask it to tell him everything it knows about, the persona that it's talking to, as a good way of just double checking and redirecting it to refer to the configuration.
There's an ongoing conversation. We were talking about this earlier, and I will find out which scientist was talking about it. So I was listening to it this morning, but there is a kind of messy middle for AI. There are bits in the middle of a long prompt or a long set of instructions that it will forget. And Tiffany's point to going back and asking it to remind itself in the moment of what it already knows, what it's there to do, and what's this one task just asked it to do, that tends to keep it kind of contained.
Yep, exactly.
You do have to remind it, especially if it's part of a long conversation, you have to remind it. I had to remind it, no prose, more pithy.
Yep, exactly.
It's just that it's like a human being, really.
Like my daughter.
I was thinking more as a bit like me. Yeah. Just, just pulling you back, pulling you back. This is why we're here. Just bringing you back into the room. This is what we're set up to do.
Any other thoughts, comments? We'd love any feedback on our optimizer if you want to shoot it over to us. Oh, I didn't show our QR codes again. Does anyone need them, or did you get them?
If you could send them, I don't want to do it on my phone. I'd rather do it on my computer.
Yeah, and
Yep, I'll put it on the follow-up.
and I can send a roundup with links, and I can also put them in the Slack, and so just make sure everyone gets follow-ups if there's anything else, like you mentioned, that recommendation, anything like that you just want to follow up with. I'll make sure it gets distributed, especially to those who attended, but to the rest of the community as well.
Yeah, cool. I'm pleased that everybody like connect on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
As previously mentioned, we're on there every day. So if there's ever a point that we can help or something we can help, we can point you in the right direction. Always happy to do that.
Absolutely.
Terrific.
Awesome.
Well, yeah, this has been so informative and inspiring, definitely for me. And again, I can tell for quite a few of the community members. And so looking forward to sharing this even wider, and just great to have involved in the community, and I hope we get to keep learning from you. So feel free to share things about what you're working on with us, and love to have you back sometime too. And yes, thanks, Aileen, for the assist here, and always great to get recommendations from community members in terms of who should be enlightening us on these calls.
Great.
Always
Thank
Thank
you
you for
both.
having
enjoyed
us.
it very much.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks,
Guys.
Bye.
Bye.